Audio and video on demand. Stay connected. 830WCCO.com.
What's neat about RS, that I think originally had that initial Camaros, you can have RS package on the base model all the way up through. So you can have a V6 with large wheels, high technology lamps, the upgrade interior, so the car can get as good as the most expensive version of it.
Oh, it looks awesome. Absolutely awesome. One of the things when I saw it for the first time was, the back of the car and the cues and the inspiration for all of it. Like I say, it's just, from someone who had a Firebird and someone who had, friends with Camaros, it's just instantaneously recognizable.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That was the intent.
I mean, this detail here is interesting.
Yeah, backup lamps there. Initially, we wanted to have them down here because this package is so tight. We wanted to have the rear end as efficient as possible, and that's when we located the details here. This car actually even drove a new Chevy logo. Because if you look at the surfacing on this, it actually feels like the surface character on the car. And now this has become the new Chevy logo for all the vehicles. So that's kind of neat. The taillights, traditionally the Camaros had kind of a bar, but I wanted to somehow, over history, there's always been a relationship between Corvette and Camaro. So this kind of hails to that a little bit. It's not the round you see with Corvettes, but there's separate elements here. So it kind of has somewhat of a relationship to it. The other thing that I think is probably the most significant area of the car in the rear is this guy right here. Kind of a powerful muscular shapes. I was talking about some of that surfacing. You take your hand right here and just you look at it and feel that right there.
And that's something
that
you did in the...
took weeks, I'd say months, to get that shape right. And it was done by hand initially to get these surface transitions.
So you did it in hand and by hand in clay, and you kept...
And then you bring it into the computer, you scan it,
Mm-hmm.
you bring it in, you work it, because ultimately our deliverable is a computer program in which they cut the steel tools.
Sure.
So that happens. The other thing to note on this car, Steve, I don't know how familiar you are with actual manufacturing production, but if you look at this boring around here, all the way around here, to this point, that came from one flat piece of sheet of steel. One piece. So look at the depth.
What did the engineers tell you when you said this is what we want to do?
A little bit nervous. Because think about that.
Sure.
There's the depth of the steel. That came from one flat piece of steel. So it took a lot of concerted effort in terms of how you engineer the dies, the type of metal you do, and then working with the guy, the die people, to get this surface looking just right. To get these crisp lines in here. We actually, I mentioned the artistry of the sculptors. I have to also acknowledge the metal guys, because those guys are artists too. Men and women that work on the actual steel dies. It's one thing working stuff in clay, but imagine you've got a tool that's worth thousands of dollars, and you're in there working with those guys to put the finishing touches on them, and they're honing it and filing a little bit. So at the end of the day, you get this sharp crease. If you look at a lot of cars, maybe now more than ever, they're getting more of that, but creases like that, in combination with the depth we're talking here, is phenomenal. The read of these little details, quite an achievement.
And that's another tribute to the Camaro.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
Our VP of Design, Ed Welburn, obviously this car is very close to his heart, because he's the guy that always said, hey, you know what? It's time to do another Camaro. So this is one of the details he wanted to make sure that we had in there. So again, kind of an acknowledgement, kind of a tribute to the original Camaro, the 69 version of the first generation.
And I've heard that the mirrors while serve an obvious functional purpose, also have a huge design purpose as well.
Oh, yeah.
That it's a big part of how the car flows.
Yes, visually it does.
Were there any challenges in making that work and making that right?
Oh, yeah, because I'll tell you, one thing is, what's huge now and get ever more important are aerodynamics. And
wind noise isn't acceptable.
Well, aerodynamics from two aspects. One is drag to make it as slippery as possible for fuel economy. The other one is, to your point, Steve, noise. These are huge potential noise generators. So when we get these mirrors, these angles, I'm telling you, they are the fraction of a millimeter calculated. This angle, these radii, how wide this flat is here, this inclination, the dimension between here and here, are all finely tuned to optimize for noise reduction. It's crazy, a mirror.
Sure.
That drives us crazy. We just spent many hours in wind tunnel fine-tuning these surfaces. They aren't just sculpted. Okay, it looks good.
Well, it's a great look.
It's
a great look. Now, the front end of the car is what we talked a lot about, and this is featured a ton, as you might expect. What challenges, what evolved in this process?
So look at the front end first. You look at the side. Let me tell you why. You stand back here. Look at the car. First thing you see is the proportion. A little bit longer front, and you remember your Firebird had kind of a short front overhang.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this, we call it dashed axle, the base of the windshield to the center line of the wheel. That's dashed axle.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this reach of the front wheel and a short front overhang, and that gives it that proportion, that aggressive proportion. The one that probably stands out most nowadays that do that, BMW does that, isn't it quite well, really short front overhang. So that was the first part. This front end is really aggressive, and the next one is the graphic. To me, that view right there, that's what captured. I mentioned Sing Yup, my Korean designer that kind of came up with the initial sketch. I said, that's it. Because you look at it, it has kind of it's not smiling, but it's kind of like, but it's your dog, so it's not growling at you. So it's nice, So it has a personality. It's in the hunt. It looks serious. These are the Xenon high-tech. We refer to them as high-tech lamps. But it has a character, personality to it about it, but in a beautiful way. Very functional. I mentioned the Stingray. You'll keep this big crate in mind, because that's where it actually came from. The Stingray concept that we did. Actually, it's on the internet now. I can show you.
Sure.
If you have a chance. But just the center aperture, single opening. Okay, with the lamps in it. That is very Camaro. And the other cars do too, but uniquely, what makes this one unique is, and I want to make sure I capture this too, which we call the 69 Camaro, is that you have this plan view in the sheet metal, and then the grill is a V, but it's actually faster. Did you see that?
Sure.
And that goes in, reaches in depth for these headlamps, and they have kind of this in the hunt look. And then there's this kind of this twisting attitude, and in fact, if you feel the lamp with your hand, you know how sunglasses have kind of a lens feel to them? It has kind of a this shape right here.
Sure.
I said we got to get that. So it has this lens kind of feel to it, which I think also adds to the eye quality. So it's simple and straightforward.
The WCCO homepage, 830wcco.com.